Hey guys, Brian here from Better Chess Training, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a game from one of my friends, Riyadh Malahi, who was a co-winner in a recent USCF online tournament that I helped to run. I asked him to share some of his thoughts during the game, and he was very generous to give me some commentary and analysis. So enjoy and check it out. Hey guys, in this video, I'm actually going to be sharing a game from a recent tournament that I helped run at our chess club. It's actually a USCF online rated tournament that was played. And the participants, the white pieces, his name is Riyadh Malahi, and he was actually the co-winner of the event with 3.5 out of 4 points in this event. And his opponent, who played the black pieces, his name is Marian Prochik. He's actually a USCF expert, and I believe the highest rated player in this particular tournament. Also had a fine showing with 3 out of 4. But in this game, we're going to look at it from White's point of view. Riyadh played very well, and he actually was generous enough to give me some of his comments. So I'm going to sprinkle those in as we take a look at this game. Okay, starts out with e4, and here he commented that growing up or starting out, he was a very positional player, played a lot of c4 and won knight to f3. So as he's gaining experience, as he's getting older, he wants to fight a little more, which I like that as well. c5, and this was kind of a surprise because Marian is a very strong positional player, so we're used to him playing say e5 or like the French in order to squeeze your opponents. And he's a well-known player here in the Buffalo area who's been around for a while. So c5 was a little bit of a surprise. And after knight to f3, d6, we have the open Sicilian. d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, all very standard. And the second surprise here is the dragon. So this is a very aggressive system, and we're going to see what happens here. Often there's going to be an attack on both sides. Normally the queen attacks on the queen side. Normally black attacks on the queen side. Normally white attacks on the king side. And here, white plays the h3 system. Just to show you, normally I would play something like bishop to e3 with queen to d2, which is the Yugoslav. But h3 works here, and he mentions that he basically wants to cut off the g4 square from black's pieces. And then, as we'll see in the game, he actually does build up very similar to the Yugoslav attack. Bishop to g7, bishop to e3, bishop to d7, and queen to d2. So a lot of times this bishop's going to come to h6 in some lines to try to trade off with this dark square bishop. Knight to c6, bishop to e2, all very straightforward. This bishop, by the way, can also come here to c4, but that is a little bit of a different system. And rook to c8, bearing down the c-file. A lot of times if white castles queenside, there's potential for exchange sacrifices on c3. Okay, and here, knight to b3 isn't a bad move, but Riyadh criticizes his play here as being too passive. And he mentions rook to d1 or castling as alternatives. However, I kind of like the idea maybe of even thinking about castling queenside, because a lot of his moves, as we see later, are going to be on the king side. But in any case, knight to b3 was played, and a6. And this is setting up for black's counterplay on the queen side. Okay, h3 is played. And b5. White castles and black castles. So here, this is a good place to take stock. Black is going to try to open up some lines here on the queen side, perhaps. And white is going to look to push f4, g4 at some point, and try to break open black's king position. Of course, both have to be on the alert for central thrust here like e5 or d5 by black. But right now, I would say white has a slight edge that he normally gets in this these open Sicilian type positions, but black is still doing okay here. Okay, f4 is played, and rook to e8. So all along the script here, looking to push this e5. Okay, g4 is played. So here, a little bit aggressive. And this is one reason why I like castling on queenside in these types of positions well. But what you'll see here is because black's pieces are all aiming towards the queen side, there's not as much danger to white's king here. Okay? Now here, king to h8 is played. And I think this is maybe the first strategic mistake by black. Normally, this is not an unusual move, but normally it happens when this bishop is on c4, bearing down this diagonal, and to avoid this pin on the f-pawn. But because the bishop is not there, I feel like this is maybe a wasted move. And I think maybe what he had in mind was, actually had a couple things in mind, I think, was what he plays next is this knight retreat. But I think it's very slow here, and it allows white to push forward. But white develops very patiently. Rook a to d1. I think that was a good move. I'm trying to think, would g5 work here? I think it might, but maybe not necessary quite yet. But in any case, I do think rook a to d1 was a good move. Queen to c7. And here is where white chooses to push forward with g5. Now, in analyzing this, Riyadh notes that knight to h5 probably objectively would have been better, but I think we can all understand, or at least he understood, that after bishop takes h5, d takes h5, this just doesn't look very good, especially if you consider moves like knight to d5 coming. You could see that this position around the king is becoming a little more suspect. But knight to g8, I think, as you can see here, is very, very passive. And this is going to allow white to gain a big initiative here. Knight to d5, attacking the queen. Bishop to b7. And here, again, a nice move here. I think Riyadh's earlier development with playing positional openings like c4 and knight to f3 have given him a little bit of patience in developing his attack, which I think is a good quality. Okay, bishop takes h3. Now, so black wins a pawn here, but I think this is a little bit of a mistake as well, because now, even though white gives up this pawn, what does he have now? He has the h-file. And rook to f2. White is quick to take advantage of that. Bishop to e6. And here, rook to h2. Very natural. And now we're bearing down this h-file. Okay, f5. This is a pretty straightforward strike, trying to get a little bit of counterplay here, especially undermining this knight here on d5. But maybe a little too late in this position. In Riyadh's notes, he actually noted that maybe this could have been played a few moves ago. So knight to d4 comes in now, and here Riyadh criticizes himself a little again, this move, because it allows black to kind of come back here. And let me show you why. Knight takes d4, and after bishop takes d4, black can defend with bishop to f7, just leaving this knight here, but this without any entry points into the black position. So this is probably black's best defense. I think white is still better here, but would have been better than what happened in the game. Okay, well, instead of that, black played bishop takes d5. And here, e takes d5. And again, maybe a little too passive, knight to d8. Instead, I think something like knight takes d4. And after bishop takes d4, undermining here with e6 or even e5 would have given black a little more counterplay. Instead, knight to d8 just, well, it just looks bad, but we're going to see where it leads up to white being able to get a lot of activity in the coming moves. Okay, bishop to f3 is played, so the queen gets out of this potential trouble here because he does want to play e6 or e5 at some point. And here, white plays a great move, knight e6. And the idea here is that white is going to sacrifice another pawn, this pawn right here, but he's going to get a lot of piece activity, which is usually a good reason to sacrifice a pawn. So knight takes e6, d takes e6, queen takes e6, and here bishop to e5 comes in. Now, bearing down this diagonal. Okay, queen to d7 is played, and bishop to f5. Oh, this is getting a little dangerous here for black. Before we see what black played, let's just take a look here. Natural move would be rook to f8, but then we have bishop takes g6, threatening here. Okay, and so after bishop to f7, then pretty much black saw that threat and wasn't forced, but had to put something in the way here. And in this case, white has a big advantage. He's about to gain a big material advantage, but black is just trying to survive. So white is in time trouble here, which is maybe another reason why black wanted to complicate the position. But Riyadh seemed pretty confident. He said, well, you got to try to play the best moves. And with the 10-second increment, he wasn't worried about losing on time. So g takes h6. Bishop to f6, and so even though we've closed off this attack down the h file, as we'll see, there are other ways to get at the king potentially. So bishop takes e8, winning the rook. So now after queen takes e8, white is up a full rook for, I believe, 2 pawns, which just isn't enough here. Queen to d5, bishop to d4 would have been fine as well, but queen to d5, rook to c4, and here bishop to d4. And the idea, of course, we're up a lot of material, but a general principle, when you're up a lot of material, if you could find productive ways to trade down material, that extra material or force on the board is going to be very effective. Okay, after bishop to d4, black plays e5, and after f takes e5, d takes e5, white plays a very nice move to finish the game. And that is rook to e2, pinning this pawn. Of course, we cannot take, otherwise white will take with check. And there, black chose to resign, and rightly so. I hope you guys enjoyed that game. I thought it was very instructional as well as very exciting. I really appreciate, Riyadh, I really appreciate you sharing your analysis and your commentary with me. It was very instructive as I was creating this video. And if you want to check out the results from that event, I'm going to put a link down below. And also, while the East Aurora Chess Club that I'm a member of, although we're primarily an over-the-board club with everything happening with this coronavirus, we have taken to the internet with regard to our events. So check that out as well. I'll put down the link for the club down below. Check out our events online. If you're a U.S. Chess Federation member, you're welcome to play. So in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I'll talk to you soon.